Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to lecture 17. In this lecture, we will continue the discussion on the urban reform and managing change. In the last lecture, we introduced the discussion on the urban reform, and we have seen that in last few decades, starting from 1992 with 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, and thereafter in 2004 with JNNURM and few other projects and programs, and recently through the AMRUT, all the urban development organizations and local governments, they are going through a changing process which we are calling as a urban reform. So, main objective of the urban reform is to bring changes for the better facility, better service delivery for the common people. Now, we have seen that some of the reforms are mandatory, some of the reforms are optional at all level like state level and the local government level. Now, the question is how to bring those reform in place. Saying something, giving mandate something is something, but bringing and taking actual action and implementing those reforms are very much challenging in actual scenario. So, let us see what are the process, concepts and some examples related to the concept of the managing change. So, today we will discuss three elements: the concept of managing change, its process and basic elements, and also we will discuss few examples. Now, in the concept, the central theme here is basically an organization. And in our discussion, an organization is basically urban local self government. And in India, this organization is acting as local government since 1992-93 from 74th Amendment. Now, there were some objectives stated with this mandate, some jobs assigned to it which we discussed earlier in 12th schedule. Now, the question was that how to implement those job because organizational capacity was not much. So, they could not deliver. That is why some reform was mandated for this local government. So, when we say reform, it is the basically organizational change. And in earlier, when we talk about the organization, we talked that in local governments there is a elected member, then functionaries, and then community organization, and then we have people. So, these are the vertical of the organization of urban local bodies. Now, bringing change in all vertical, it requires bringing change in all verticals, it requires change in value and culture of the organization, change in rules and regulation, change in systems and process, and change in vision and plan, and change in expertise and preparedness. Now, you can see from this diagram that organization is at the center. The organization is mandated for some particular jobs, and for that job it needs a change from all vertical elected functionaries, community organization and the common people. So, and change is required for changing of the values and culture of the organization, the systems and processes, and the rules and regulation if it is required, and most importantly the expertise and the knowledge base of the people who are working, and also visioning and the planning mechanism of that organization. So, this is the concept which we mean for the urban local bodies or the urban local governance. Now, the question is, let us see that how the people have tried to define it. So, you just have a look of the definition, then I will discuss. So, in this definition I would like to mention few words like change management is a comprehensive, cyclic and structured approach for transitioning individuals, groups and organization from a current state to a future state with intended business benefits. So, this is the formal definition of a change management given by one of the renowned institutes. I have just referred that. So, please follow the terms comprehensive, cyclic, structured, transitioning. Comprehensive means the change will be comprehensive and it will encompass all the facets of the development and the growth. It is not a standalone exercise that it is done for only particular one job or one function or one section of an organization. It is cyclic, it starts somewhere and after some time you have to assess the results whether it is aiming or it is targeting the objectives or the target, and then you come back to your plan and programs and revise it and further improve the plan and the vision. So, it is a cyclic process and continuous process. Then it is a structured approach. It cannot be happened in a very unorganized and a very haphazard and piecemeal approach. It has to be a structured approach, it has to be documented in a proper manner, it has to be documented systematically as per the norms and standards, and has to be implemented. And also there is a concept of transitioning from current situation to the future situation, and the objective it is clearly stating that from current state to a future state where the organization will get some amount of benefit of the organization. Now, here the business benefit for a local government does not mean always financial benefit. Here the business is giving the public service delivery, public the urban development. For the business benefit is can be like better citizens image, better citizens perception, better service delivery, more accountability, more transparency. So, those are the benefits which we basically seek for the urban local government. Now, based on this definition and the concept, let us discuss what could be the changing process. In this changing process, the first thing is what you should mention, you should think about, that is the vision which is required for the city, and then with the vision you have to set few objectives and identify projects and intervention areas, right, and then you identify the dedicated team which will work. Now, in this it can be multifaceted, various types of team, and then you set goals and communicate. Organize training and capacity building, and with that also it is required to make sensitization and assess results monitoring or monitor the progress, right. So, this is a general change process what I showed. Now, let us see that how the change process is described in various referred literature. So, this is a diagrammatic representation of a change management. Now, this is the current state of affairs for the organization and this is the future state of affairs for the organization. And you can see that these are some of the business areas or the programs and projects identified, and from the this is the time progression and how set of projects are identified in various quadrants, and slowly it is from the current state to the future state it is progressing. So, this is a very schematic diagram of the change management, and in this change management the basic elements what are very much essential component is the leadership. Now, for any visioning exercise without a robust leadership, without a sensitized and really visionary leader, a change management it is very difficult to implement any change management. So, leadership is important. So, leadership is required at the elected representative level, at the functionaries level, at the technical or the professional level, at the community level also. So, leadership is a culture. A leader can encourage lot of other leadership in terms of the better work performance and effectiveness of the organization. And not only the leadership, about the process, a absolute clarity is required for all the leaders and functionaries. Second is the leadership and the functionaries, they will be ready for the problem solving for the issues, because the moment a change is aimed from the current affairs to the future affairs, you are going to disturb the current systems, current process, current comfort zones of the people. So, there will be conflict, there will be problems, there will be issues. So, how to resolve those conflict, those issues, that is a major challenge in a changing managing change. So, clarity of the process and being clear about the process and informing the functionaries and the staffs and the people about the process, and then solve the problems and the issues are very much important. And increase of change agent, it is not a one person's agent. So, if a leader elected or functionaries, they are the change agent, it is also required to create the professional or the trained persons who will act on your behalf as a change agent on the ground. For example, if you think that accounting reform is a change in the municipal government, then create professionals who can bring the accounting reform on ground. If you consider that planning is a function which needs to be mandated as a reform, you create urban planners at the municipalities. If you think that citizens interface or any other reform is important for the urban local bodies, create professional, create those change agents and allow them to work at the ground level. So, these are the basic elements which is required for the change management. Now, based on the process what we discussed, now let us see the steps, what could be the steps in the reform implementation. Now, first action what is required as the apex management team. So, apex management team is basically is a team which will set goals, as I discussed earlier, goals and vision. Then implementation support team, this implementation support team they work to support the apex management team for the implementation. Identify the support departments for the reform. Earlier I discussed that identify few projects and programs. It is also important that in a larger umbrella, in a larger canvas, what are the concerned departments who will be subject to those change in the first phase, what are the departments who are subject to the change in the second phase or third phase. So, those departments need to be identified along with the projects and the programs. and identify the reform projects as well as I communicate the reform objectives, set project teams. So, this project team is specific to the project. I will give you example later on, and then training as I discussed, and action plan and monitoring to assess the result. So, this is the steps involved in the reform implementation. Just have a look that how it can be represented through a diagram. Now, this representation I have taken this from the Center for Good Governance. They have published a good literature on the governance mechanism. You can see that whatever we discussed, like management team, established implementation, target departments and reforms, and then reform projects and the target department, communication, set up change agents and group, training and capacity building, implement action plan and monitoring, and review the progress and develop database and identify the lessons. So, this is the process which is required step by step. So, you should be clear if you are a change agent in the urban local bodies or local level organization, you should be clear about this process and make your team clear how this change process will take place, right. And this is the process and the elements clubbed together just to remember the very important elements. Here you can see that the first thing, the most important bigger thing which is required is shared vision, which I mentioned in the beginning, and this strategy which is required to make the shared vision successful. So, strategy could be organizational level, at the personal level, at the group level, and to make it possible, you need to improve the systems and process. For example, for any particular service delivery, you are in urban local bodies, you are giving a service for water supply. Now, how much time a common citizen need to wait for getting a water supply after putting up an application to the urban local bodies. So, can this time period be minimized by using better systems like computerized system or online system, or the process? Can you minimize the process or the stages in the approval process which is involved? Maybe right now there are number of process or stages or steps which may not be required if you change the systems. So, process need to be can be also improved. So, systems and process both are dependent and these are part of related to the strategy which will work on your behalf to bring the change process. And in the shared vision, it is also connected with the shared values. And when we say values, it is not the individual values. In the beginning, we described that in urban local governance, it is the organizational values or the culture which matters. And then the value cannot be a abstract concept. Value is always subject to people who are working on the organization. And when we talk about the stuff, it is the skills, and the structure of the organization which matters. For our case, it is the like elected functionaries, groups and individual. So, these are the structures and skill set which is required to bring the change management. Now, these are the elements in the change management process. Now, let us discuss few examples. Now, this change management is not a very new concept. It came very early, like in 80s and 90s. In urban sector, for example, not even it is not only applicable for Indian or similar context. In post 90s in United States, there are a lot of deliberations and discussions to bring the change in the urban scenario, to make the urban local government more functional, effective, so that they can get more revenues. So, after lot of deliberations, they bring a lot of changes, like for example, they brought in United States 1998 and post 98, they brought reforms like tax reforms, land use reforms and metropolitan governance reforms. So, there are many reforms. I am just mentioning 3 reforms. The objective of the tax reform is to enhance the revenue. The objective of the land use reform is to enhance the quality of built environment. Objective of the metropolitan governance reform was to improve the service delivery like that. So, this kind of changes took place in United States. For Indian case, in 2004 to 11, there was a program called Kolkata Urban Services for Poor. In short, it is in this program what they followed, they created a apex team in the name of Change Management Unit, in short CMU. Then they identified the reforms, like 3 reforms they identified. The first reform is DDP, in short Draft Development Plan. Second is the accounting reforms, and third is the Citizens Charter. Citizens Charter. Now, objective of the DDP or the Draft Development Plan was to improve the quality of the physical quality and social quality of the organ of the city as a whole. Accounting objective of the accounting reform was to improve the tax base and accounting system which is transparent. Objective of the improvement of the Citizens Charter was to improve the interface with the citizens and improve the service delivery. So, after identifying the apex team as a change management unit, they identified the functionaries or the change agent who are going to bring this change. So, they identified the team in terms of urban planner, they identified the team like finance expert and an IT expert. So, this kind of manpower upgradation was provided in the urban local bodies, and then they provided training sensitization all happen, and during this 5 to 7 years of period, they, after following up all this project, there was significant improvement in terms of service delivery, the planning function, accounting scenario, the augmentation of the services and the revenues, etc. Not only that, in during that time when JNNURM came, JNNURM also followed the reform agenda for all the local bodies and all the cities in India. They provided the mandates to bring change in the urban local bodies. 2 types of change, one is the mandatory change as optional change. Some of the mandatory changes will be done at the state level, some will be done at the urban local bodies level. Similarly, optional reforms will be done at the both level. So, this we discussed earlier, the mandatory reforms and the optional reforms, and at both level. So, this reform also has been successful, at least to bring some amount of change in the urban local bodies. So, if you are working in some urban local bodies or you are going to work in urban local bodies, your job is to assess the change process the results of the change and then monitor the change process and then upgrade the changing process, so that it does not become a one time exercise, it is a continuous exercise. So, this example in the current times there are many examples, such similar examples are there. I will share some of the reference material. Please go through the reference material and try to understand that what are the critical factors in change management and how to solve the critical factors. Whatever we discussed, it is very general, conceptual and theoretical, but your job will be to study the cases which we will be providing and study the examples in more detail, so that really you can identify the critical factors and so that you can master the process of the change whenever you are working in such organization. So, as a summary, just have a look of the steps what we discussed earlier. So, basically in this steps, some of the steps are related to manpower, you can see. So, these are related to manpower. Some of the steps are related to projects and department. Some of the stages are related to training and monitoring. So, one is related to manpower, one it is related to projects and programs and the departments, another is a continuous process of training, upgradation and monitoring and check and balance. So, with this I would like to conclude today's lecture. In today's lecture we discussed the concept of the change management. We told you that the change management is a planned process, is a structured process, is a cyclic process, and it is a comprehensive process which brings a particular change in an organization for the current state to the future state to bring some business benefit. For our case, it is the benefit in terms of the better service delivery, competent and accountable service delivery in the urban governance. And in this concept, the basic stages involved are setting vision and objective, creating the project teams and the APEC teams, giving them sensitization and training, identify the pilot projects or the target projects, make the communication to all levels of your organization. For our case, it is the elected functionaries, community and the people, and communicate the change process, make the change agents. So, create the manpower who will bring the change on part of the organization and give them training and sensitization, so that they can do and then assess the result and keep a monitoring check and balance. And after that we just mention and briefly about the examples in the United States, the urban reform agenda. The reform came in the JNNURM and also reform happened during the DFID funded project, CAST project, and then also we encouraged you to see the actual cases of the change management, so that you can master the management and the change process in your organization. Next day we will discuss another very important aspect, the visioning for the city, because in this discussion we have identified that visioning is important for the bringing change and reform. Now, how to make the visioning and how to place a visioning in overall urban governance, that will be subject matter for the next lecture. So, with this I thank you very much for attending this lecture.